Box, the Barcode, and the Basics of Sleuthing by Richard Jonathan O. Taduran, Ph.D. The call came in like many others. A body had been recovered from a river in Camarines Norte, this time concealed inside a large plastic storage box. The victim was a woman, later identified as 37-year-old Annalise Agham. The container itself quickly became the focus of public attention, its presence lending the case an unsettling visual hook. Images circulated. Speculation followed. As is often the case, the spectacle threatened to eclipse the work. From the start, however, the investigation did not hinge on shock value. Police identified a suspect early on, Agham's live-in partner, a security guard who had since disappeared. The case unfolded not through dramatic revelations, but through a steady accumulation of facts. Days later, the suspect surrendered to authorities, accompanied by his father. Murder charges followed. Cases like this are often framed as sensational cautionary tales or treated as spectacles of forensic intrigue. But what makes this investigation worth examining is not the container nor the horror it evokes. It is the way the case was solved, through careful, patient sleuthing that relied on ordinary tools, disciplined reasoning, and a refusal to skip steps. Following the fragments. The evidence that built the case was neither exotic nor futuristic. Investigators began with the box itself, not merely as a vessel for the body, but as an object with a history. A commercial barcode affixed to the container offered a traceable starting point. That barcode led to a retail source, anchoring the object in a specific transaction, place, and time. This was not high-tech wizardry, it was basic traceability applied well. From there, investigators followed the suspect's movements through closed-circuit television footage. The cameras did not capture a crime in progress, nor did they provide a single decisive moment. Instead, they documented continuity, a man carrying a large box boarding transport moving across spaces that only became meaningful when viewed in sequence. CCTV did not solve the case on its own. It supplied fragments that required interpretation. Equally important was context beyond physical traces. Reports indicated that the victim had warned family members of threats made against her prior to her death. This information did not function as proof, but as background, an interpretive frame that made subsequent findings intelligible rather than coincidental. Relationship dynamics matter in forensic work not because they explain everything, but because they explain enough to guide inquiry. As the evidentiary pieces accumulated, pressure mounted. There was no dramatic gotcha moment, no sudden revelation that forced an immediate confession. Instead, the suspect surrendered as the story told by objects, movements, and context began to close in. In real-world investigations, surrender often comes not from remorse alone, but from the realization that the fragments are beginning to align. This is what good forensics looks like: context, sequence, and convergence. Forensic science is often misunderstood as the pursuit of definitive, standalone proofs, a fingerprint, a DNA match, a single piece of evidence that settles everything. In practice, it is something quieter and more demanding. It is the discipline of context, sequence, and convergence. Contextual evidence reminds us that objects do not exist in isolation. A plastic box is not just plastic. It is a manufactured item, sold somewhere, acquired by someone, and used within a particular social setting. Relationships, prior communications, and everyday behaviors give material evidence its meaning. Without context, evidence is mute. Sequence reconstruction is equally critical. Investigators did not ask only what happened, but in what order. Purchase precedes possession. Possession precedes transport. Transport precedes disposal. Time, movement, and decision-making are evidentiary dimensions in their own right. Crimes are not static events, they are processes, and understanding them requires reconstructing flow rather than freezing moments. Most importantly, this case illustrates convergence, no single element. The barcode, the CCTV footage, the prior threats was decisive on its own. Each could be explained away in isolation. Together, they began to agree. That agreement is the backbone of forensic reasoning. Forensic science is not about single pieces of evidence. It is about how unrelated fragments begin to agree with one another. This is precisely what popular portrayals of forensics often miss. Investigative certainty does not come from any single discovery, but from the cumulative weight of fragments that reinforce one another. When evidence aligns across context, sequence, and circumstance, it becomes increasingly resistant to alternative explanations. That coherence, rather than dramatic revelation, is what gives forensic conclusions their strength. When the basics are done well. In a public climate that is often skeptical, rightly so, of law enforcement, it is important to say this plainly. Not all police work is careless, incompetent, or corrupt. Criticism of institutions is necessary. Accountability matters. But blanket cynicism obscures the reality that many cases are solved by people doing unglamorous work well. This investigation did not rely on shortcuts. It did not depend on intimidation or spectacle. It advanced because someone noticed a small detail, followed it patiently, and allowed multiple lines of evidence to mature before forcing conclusions. That kind of work rarely makes for dramatic television. It does, however, make for solid cases. This case offers a quieter lesson about how forensic work actually succeeds. Justice is not produced by dramatic discoveries or singular moments of certainty. It is assembled gradually, through sustained attention to detail, disciplined reasoning, and respect for method. When investigators allow evidence to accumulate, align, and speak in concert, conclusions emerge with clarity and force. The most effective sleuthing is rarely spectacular, and that is precisely why it works.